And welcome to Tame Your Talents, November 4th. It's a Thursday. Brad J., I'm your host, a 20-plus year action sports and professional sports announcer as your host. And I've been doing this, Tame Your Talent, for a long time. I think I've been doing the Tame Your Talent podcast for a long time, but took such a hiatus over it. And I'm really trying to commit and be the guy and deliver a show 7 days a week. You know, weekends are tough to do that all the time, but I'm trying to keep with it. So there you go. And I just talk about the stories, my story, and what I've gone through to become one of the top announcers, from just basically, you know, waiting tables and just being a college student, just surfing every day. And all of a sudden I was able to work my way up into a position to where, you know, doing Olympics, doing X Games, and doing all the major events. And how did I get there? My story is actually pretty entertaining when you get down to it. You know, so it is pretty cool. You can follow me on a lot of things. First off, man, I'm going to go through this list. Whatever appeals to you, write it down, keep it in your memory bank. Here you go. Tame Your Talent on YouTube. That is my YouTube page, behind the scenes, exclusive stuff from Korea, from the Olympics out there, and things that I've done are on there too as well. I'm putting more on there and working on that a lot, but that's Tame Your Talent. That's on Facebook and that's on YouTube. And it's pretty entertaining. You can check that out, and you'll probably like it too as well. My own social media is Brad JAYMC, and that's pretty much on everything. From Snapchat to TikTok to Facebook to Instagram to whatever, Brad JAYMC is that. Okay, that's out of the way. Now I also do a nightly radio show, a classic rock radio show, 6 hours long on the West Coast. And I do it for a radio station called 99.9 KTYD in Santa Barbara. Now, if you're in Santa Barbara, you can listen to that, no problem, just by tuning in on the radio. But if you're not in Santa Barbara, you can listen to my radio show on ktyd.com. Kicks off at 7 p.m., runs till midnight, West Coast time. So if you like, you know, like REM, Stevie Ray Vaughan, The Police, Beatles, Fleetwood Mac, that's just some of the music I have ready for 7 o'clock tonight, okay? So check my radio show out, Classic Rock. KTYD.com. Boom. Whew. Seems like it takes me longer and longer to get through all that bull crap before I actually get into the podcast. Okay, so the podcast today, I get up this morning, and it's always one of those things. What story am I going to tell? Like, what have I gone through that's part of my story that's pretty cool that people could learn from? And there's so much to it, and I've covered so much so far, like, you know, me getting all these Olympic jobs and what have you, and working in the NBA and working for Major League Baseball, and some cool stories there with all that. But then I started thinking, as I look back at my 20-plus year career in action sports announcing and professional announcing in general and hosting, I start thinking to myself, like, how did it all get there? You look at all the things that I've got to do to get to where I am, and it's been an amazing career. I mean, 20-plus years to be able to say, you know, for over 2 decades that I've been doing this. And I've been doing it on a high level too, at the biggest jobs. And how did I get? Started out from humble beginnings and worked all the way up, you know, just a punk ass college student paying for his way and, you know, waiting tables in the meantime and looking for that big break, and it happened. So this podcast, I thought to myself, why don't we make it things I would tell my younger self if I could talk to him right now? So what would you tell your younger self if there's like, I mean, what if you were given 3 things, okay? You were given 3 things to be able to tell your younger self. Like, if I was able to go back to when I was 18 years old, right, and tell myself 3 things. And if you're 18 already, then things that you would tell yourself at 10, okay? Whatever the case may be. Whatever the age difference and whoever younger, what would you tell your younger self? And it would obviously be different in different stages of life. But I look at, for me, let's go back to 18. What would I tell my 18-year-old self, Brad, at the time, if I could go back right now and be able to talk to him and tell him to prepare for what's going on? Well, and you had 3 things, like 3 wishes. What would it be? Oh my gosh. Number 1. The number 1 thing I think I would say would have to be career related, and that would be focus 100% on becoming a professional announcer right now. That would be my number 1 thing I would tell him right off the bat. Because it took me too long from that stage, from 18, where if I could have got into it a little earlier at 18, who knows, even more doors open. But I would have even a longer career. And those were years that I could have been doing. I was waiting tables, just surfing, by day, waiting tables by night. So that was what I was doing at the time. But I would tell myself to focus 100% on right now becoming a professional announcer and do whatever it takes at 18. That would be the number one thing. Now, what would be the number two thing? Okay. Well, when I was 17, I moved out. I had my diploma and I was like, I'm out. Moved to Santa Barbara from my town that I was living in, not too far away, Lompoc, which is about an hour from Santa Barbara. We had moved from Santa Barbara to Lompoc, and now I was making the move back because I was old enough and I was ready to attend college. So I remember, moving back to Santa Barbara at 17 years old. And my parents at that time had expressed interest in possibly getting me maybe a condo or something like that if I wanted to really pursue. Like, they would help me get that and obtain that. And so I would probably go back to my younger self too as well at 18 and say, if your parents are offering to help you get a condo right now in Santa Barbara, get a condo right now in Santa Barbara. Trust me. I mean, if you look at the years those were, early to mid 80s. Think about that. Like, the real estate values back then were so low, right? So low. And now they are triple, quadruple what they were. So if my parents were to, let's say, put a down payment on a condo and I was able to keep the condo, and then wherever my travels, because I moved around a lot. I was in San Diego, I was in Malibu, I was in Maui. I lived all different little surfing locations. So that right there would have been huge, because that condo right now, which could have been like 200,000 back then, could be over $1 million right now in Santa Barbara. So I would that'd be the number two thing I would tell my younger self at 18 years old. Now, you got three things, okay? What would be the third? I mean, you almost think, could it be it, like, you think Back to the Future, like with a sport betting book, where the outcome of a Super Bowl or a World Series. Would you tell him that one? Would you tell yourself that? Hey, dude, bet $100,000 on this team to win the Super Bowl, okay? That's pretty mischievous, but I mean, come on, think about it. Wouldn't that be a good idea? Like, that's gonna get you some money. The only problem is your younger self probably doesn't have any money to put that kind of cash down on something. So maybe that's not the best third one. What would be the third one? Let me see. Ah, perfect. I got it. The third one that I would tell myself is, don't marry that girl from England, okay? Do not marry the girl from England, okay? No matter how lonely you may be at that time, do not marry her. All right, and let me explain that, because I'm married to an awesome woman now, and we've been married for over 20 years. She's basically helped me with my entire career. She's always been there for me. But before that, I had a dream squasher, which I call her, and I won't even mention her name. There's no need to even. She was my first wife. She's from England. She was able to stay in America with my last name because she was married to me for a couple years. And the first year was okay. Second year was horrible, and it did not last very long after that. But the reason that's what I would probably tell myself. But then you start thinking, if I tell myself not to, that's kind of the start of my career, because if I met this English girl I met her in Hawaii when I was living in Maui, and I moved back to live with her in Venice Beach, California. And so then within 3 or 4 years after that, her and I are divorced, and I started my radio career. So if I did not marry her, would that have all happened? So you don't want to mess with the timeline, man. Look, I'm a big fan of, like, back in time movies and stuff like that. So you don't want to mess with the timeline. So would that be the third thing? That's a tough one. That's a tough one to say. That's a tough one. Oh, if I said I didn't marry her, then that'd probably be okay, because if I still came back to Venice, that could still be the start of my career. Okay, so that would not be, that saying not to marry her would be the third one. There you go. Those are the three things that I would do right there. If I could, I'd tell myself at 18 years old, if I go back in time and tell myself, What are the 3 that you would do? That betting thing sounds pretty good, though. I mean, if it was a cinch to turn out that way, that's pretty cool. Right? What would you do? All right. That's probably the things I would tell. So number 1, to go over it, I would just tell myself, you know what, focus on announcing right away because, look, I started focusing on announcing, but I was already 30 by the time I really started focusing big time on it and landed it. I just think like, hey, there was 20 to 30 that I could have snagged that whole decade right there too as well. I mean, I had the skills to do it, and who knows? I mean, I already went to the top of the game, but that's just a cool story. So I would tell myself that for sure. And then I would definitely, because of the real estate values in Southern California, I would tell, hey, if my parents want to offer to buy, get on that program for sure. And don't marry the girl from England, okay? Because, hang out with her, but don't marry her. Okay? All right. There you go. It's an interesting concept when you think about it, right? What would be the things you'd tell yourself? Well, there you go. Those would be my 3 things. So I'm Brad J. Follow me. You can do that. All my social media is Brad J. AYMC. So Brad J. AYMC. Head over and check out YouTube. Check out my Tame Your Talent, my behind the scenes stuff out there. All the hosting I've done on YouTube for so many years and not made a dime off it. Check that out. Subscribe while you're at it. Email me if you got questions. TameYourTalent@gmail.com. And tonight, my radio show kicks off 7 p.m. on the West Coast. And you can tune into that, ktyd.com. All classic rock. Pretty sweet. You'll love it. There's Brad J. Premium cuts. There's all kinds of, there's Mandatory Zeppelin. It's a great show, ktyd.com. Nightly show kicks off 7 o'clock, ktyd.com. That's going to do it. Tame Your Talent in the books. I'm Brad J., your host. See ya.